Hello out there, thanks for tuning in for another edition of Hoops Talk. I'm your host, Mike DuPont. Today is Tuesday, February 4th. Thanks for joining us however you might be following along. Feel free to check the description in the comments below for additional outlets should you feel so interested. As always, let's just dive right in. So, the trade deadline, 2 days away, 2 days ticking down, 48 hours for those of you who haven't been following along with us. The NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February the 6th. One story today, Tuesday, February 4th, that's picked up a lot of traction, has been a potential trade involving the Golden State Warriors, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and a potential third and or fourth team. Long story short, it would send D'Angelo Russell to Minnesota through a lot of red tape to pair him with Karl-Anthony Towns. It could potentially send a lot of draft picks, two at the most. I said a lot. Could potentially send 2 draft picks back to Golden State. Could also potentially send Clint Capela to Atlanta. I won't give it a full grade yet because it could. Right now, at face value, if you just tell me Golden State's going to send D'Angelo Russell to Minnesota, Minnesota's going to send some draft picks to Golden State, and Atlanta's going to get Clint Capela, and Atlanta's going to send some draft picks to Minnesota, which they're going to send from Minnesota to Golden State. At face value, I'd give that maybe a B, at maximum a B plus. Until I see all of the moving parts is the reason I won't give it anything higher than a B. I would like to see all of the moving parts. It's easy to just tell me right now that one team's going to get draft picks. I want to see what those picks could potentially are. Are they protected? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and that's what I wanted to spend a little bit of time discussing with you all. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors that could potentially be involved in these trades. When we see teams trade picks, there are teams right now that own picks that are protected. They are protected by what that means is they belong to the team who currently owes them. Hypothetically, if Brooklyn were to trade a pick to Atlanta and tell Atlanta that pick was top 10 protected, but it's your pick, what that means is Atlanta owns Brooklyn's pick. But if Brooklyn finishes in the 10 worst teams, then that pick goes back to Brooklyn. Atlanta never owns it. And what's happening right now is we're seeing teams who own those protected picks, they're looking at the standings and they're projecting where teams might finish. And they're saying, well, this pick's not going to be ours. It's going to go back to whoever owns it. And they're trying to go ahead and trade it while it's still worth something before it goes back to whoever might own it. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's as if someone were to tell you they could, if you give them $1, they could turn it into 2. I don't want to give a grade to that potential trade until we see all the moving parts, all of them listed out, and how they will be moving, how they will affect each team. That's the news of the day. A potential trade that could land D'Angelo Russell in Minnesota, pairing him with Karl-Anthony Towns. The trade would also send Clint Capela from Houston to either Atlanta or potentially Golden State. I would assume that it would go to Atlanta, but we know what happens when you assume. But his name has been mentioned. So it's no surprise, close to the deadline, again, 2 days away from the trade deadline, Thursday, February 6th, that trade talk was still the news of the day. We do have other news taking place. We do have other games. We've got a doubleheader tonight on TNT, starting at 6:30 between the Milwaukee Bucks and the New Orleans Pelicans. The league-leading Milwaukee Bucks come into tonight's action with the record of 42-7, boasting the front-runner for MVP and Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're 4-1 in their last 5 contests. The New Orleans Pelicans are 20-30 on the season. They have improved a little bit since getting Zion Williamson back regularly in the lineup. They're in their last 5 contests, they are 3-2, which is a sign of progress for the New Orleans Pelicans, who have struggled in that Southwest Division, currently sitting at the bottom of that Southwest Division. Second half of that doubleheader, anticipated tip-off time of 9 o'clock. Again, anticipated start time of 9 o'clock. Going to be closer to 9:15 when the Lakers and the Spurs tip off on TNT. The Lakers come into tonight's action with the record of 37-11. They do lead the Western Conference with that record. They are 3-2. They are 3-2 in their last 5 contests. The Spurs come into tonight's action with the record of 22-27. They are 2-3 over their last 5 contests. They're on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs, but they are right there on the outside. They have been climbing quietly, which is the only thing the Spurs know how to do, is work quietly, keep your head down. But they have been climbing quietly, and they are starting to rise in those standings. They're still on the outside looking in for those playoffs. As always, we certainly appreciate you for joining us for another episode. We look forward to being with you tomorrow. Enjoy your time with your family, and most importantly, be blessed.